used to.
Good morning, sir. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can, thank you.
May we please call Mr. Jones?
Yeah,
You repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Could you confirm your full name, please, Mr. Jones?
It's John Howard Jones.
And you should have in front of you a hard copy of a witness statement in your name and dated the 17th of May 2023. If you turn to the last page of that, please, which is page 14, do you have a copy with a visible signature?
Yes, I do.
And is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
Are the contents of that statement true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, they are.
For the purposes of the transcript, the reference is WITN 085-60100. There's no need to display that now. Thank you for coming to the inquiry to assist it in its work and for providing the witness statement that you have. As you know, I will be asking questions on behalf of the inquiry. Today, I'm going to be asking you about issues which arise in Phase 4 of the inquiry, focusing on your involvement in the proceedings brought by the Post Office against Mr. Castleton relating to the alleged losses at Marine Drive Post Office branch. You joined the Post Office in 1982 as a counter clerk, is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And in 1988, you became a visiting officer. Can you help us with what that role involved?
The visiting officer essentially worked out of defined areas in. I was working in South Manchester, and basically you were visiting directly managed branches, agency branches, franchise branches, to really manage the kind of balanced scorecard that we had in those days, which was around service, customer service, and accuracy of documentation, particularly to our clients, as well as cash management and the control of cash at the network.
And then in 1990, you became a branch manager.
That's correct.
In 1994, you became a retail network manager.
That's correct.
In 2002, you became an area development manager working on the network reinvention programme. What was your role in relation to the network reinvention programme?
I was the area development manager for the Western Territory. The network reinvention programme split the country into 3 areas: north, east, and west. Essentially, west was everything on the motorway network west of the M6, west of the M40, west of the M25, right the way down to the south west coast. Essentially, I managed a team of business development managers who were developing the voluntary closure programme. So we were basically reducing the size of the network from a commercial point of view in the urban sector. It didn't cover the rural sector. So we were managing the voluntary exit of postmasters and closures of those branches as part of an ongoing commercial journey.
And you became a senior account manager in 2006, is that right?
That is correct.
In 2009, you became a project manager in directly managed branches.
Yes.
A flagship manager of a directly managed branch in 2010.
Yes.
And you held area manager roles between 2011 and 2019.
That is correct.
And in 2019, you held the role of regional manager of the East of England, is that right?
That is correct.
And separately to these roles, you held the role of an appeal manager from 2003 until you left the Post Office in 2019, is that right?
That is correct.
And just to be clear, you were in this role hearing appeals from disciplinary decisions taken by the Post Office, weren't you?
It's not necessarily disciplinary. There's a wide range of appeals that you hear as an appeals manager. Disciplinary, yes, but also the vast majority of appeals are against various process. So, for example, if a branch manager or a counter colleague did not agree with their personal development review score, it's not a disciplinary appeal hearing, but they have the right to appeal against that score. Appeals on our attendance policy, bullying and harassment, etc. So it's quite a wide-ranging element. So with post office employees, there are a significant area of our policies that they can appeal against.
You explain in your witness statement made for the inquiry that the appeal manager role is not a permanent role, rather it is something which senior managers do alongside their day-to-day role.
That is correct.
Did that pose any difficulties for those performing the appeal manager role in terms of the time they had to deal with these appeals?
You had to manage your time very succinctly, depending on the size of the case, the nature of the case, to give full due diligence to that appeal and fairness to that appeal. Very often a huge amount of your analysis work was done in the evenings, or it was done at weekend just to slot it around the day job. Obviously you were making time slots when you needed to visit a branch and to hold the hearings, etc. But a huge amount of time was actually in your own time.
You say at paragraph 6 of your statement to the inquiry that appeals were allocated by the HR Service Centre and that the allocation process and the way in which an appeal is conducted is intended to ensure that appeals are an independent rehearing of a case. So your understanding of your role as an appeal manager was to hear cases afresh, is that right?
That's absolutely correct.
And you were not therefore limited to the material before the original decision maker?
Sorry, could you clarify that?
If you were hearing things afresh,
Yes.
You were not limited, were you, to the information which the original decision maker, from whose decision you were hearing the appeal, was considering? So you could look at new information.
Absolutely, yes.
The process, which you also set out at paragraph 6 of your statement to the inquiry, consisted of pre-appeal inquiries, you say, to establish the nature of the case,
Yes.
the appeal interview,
Yes.
post-appeal inquiries,
Yes.
and you say conclusion and summing up, and finally the decision and any recommendations. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
a fair summary?
That's absolutely correct.
Is it right that you only heard 3 appeals brought by sub-postmasters during your career with the Post Office?
That is correct.
And only one of these was related to the Horizon system, Mr. Castleton's case.
That is correct.
Mr. Castleton's appeal was against the decision taken by his retail network manager, Catherine Oglesby, on the 17th of May 2004 to terminate Mr. Castleton's contract as the sub-postmaster of Marine Drive Post Office. That's right, isn't it?
That is right, yes.
A decision which you upheld.
That is correct.
I would like to start, please, with the documentation which you were provided with when you were allocated Mr. Castleton's appeal. Could we have on screen, please, POL 000-71234? Could you explain, please, what this document is?
Sorry. This document is a standard business document that is summarised in the event of a termination. It's normally done by the contracts manager. However, in this case, I believe it was done by Kath to detail the reasons, the rationale for their decision.
And we can see Mr. Castleton's details at the top, and then at point 4, there are brief details of the case. If we can scroll down a little bit so we can see that whole box, please. We see there the brief details are large unexplained losses at the office over a 12-week period. PMR blames the Horizon kit and software problems. No errors on system, no error notices due, no figures could be identified that had been changed by the system. checks done by Helpline, MBSC, Horizon Help Desk, Gyro Bank, Postmasters Records in Chesterfield, requests sent to Fujitsu to check suspense account software as yet not received, PMR suspended as a precaution. I have had 3 temps in there over the last 10 weeks, no large losses. And at point 5, we have details of specific charge, unexplained losses totalling £25,758.75. We have the date on which Mr. Castleton was suspended, the 23rd of March 2004. And then a brief summary at point 7 of the reasons for termination. And it says this: no evidence to support PMR claims of computer problems. As soon as the people were removed from the office, the losses stopped. The computer equipment has not been changed. Losses reached a very large amount in a very short space of time. Could we go please to page 3 of this document? This appears to set out the documents which you were provided with for the appeal. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And would you have read the documents enclosed with this index?
Absolutely. That's the sort of the key understanding of the case, really to look at the level of detail that's gone into the case, which starts to form my process as an appeals manager to look at the sort of pre-appeal inquiries that can range from rechecking the sort of calls that Kath's made, certainly going to the late accounts division at Chesterfield to ascertain are there any error notices in the system that could potentially explain the losses that were being incurred. And due to the really unusual nature of the case, I've never heard of a case where either a counter colleague or a postmaster singly blamed Horizon for the losses and not followed the appropriate advice that had been given by the retail line manager. I chose to visit the branch to...
If I can just stop you there,
sorry.
we'll come on to the steps you took,
Yep.
but just focusing at the moment on the documents that you had in front of you. And
Yes,
you were
I had
looking at.
all of those documentation.
And if we can scroll down, please, towards the bottom of the index. Item 16 seems to have been documents contained in a separate file comprising record of balances, cash accounts, Horizon printouts. Do you recall having been given this separate file at the time?
No. Not on receipt of the appeals file.
Going over to the 4th page of this document, please. We can see the title at the top, Marine Drive Post Office Summary of Events. And this is a 5-page document. If we can look at the last page, please, which is page 8 within the larger document we're in. The last line here. My decision is to summary terminate Lee Castleton's contract for services. Did you understand this summary to have been authored by Catherine Oglesby, who made the decision to terminate Mr. Castleton's contract?
Yes, I did.
The next document, going over 2 pages, please, to page 10, is the audit report dated the 23rd of March 2004, the second document in your pack, so to speak. This had been completed by Helen Hollingsworth, Inspector. The first paragraph reads as follows. An audit took place at Marine Drive Post Office on the 23rd March 2004. Helen Hollingsworth led the audit and in attendance was Chris Taylor. The audit commenced at 8 a.m. and on our arrival, the sub-postmaster was very pleased to see us. He explained problems he had been having at the office regarding balancing. His problems with balancing started in week 43 with a misbalance of minus £4,230.97. He was adamant that no members of staff could be committing theft and felt that the misbalances were due to a computer problem. He had been in contact with the retail line manager, Kath Oglesby, and the Horizon helpline regularly since the problems began. The following table gives further weeks' balance declarations on the cash account. So the first contemporaneous document you would have read, assuming you read the file in order, was this, saying that Mr. Castleton was very pleased to see us. He explained his problems with balancing. He was adamant that the problem was with his computer system, and he had been in regular contact with the retail line manager and the Horizon helpline since the problems began. When you read this, what did you take from it?
It was unusual that all the advice that Kath had previously given to Mr. Castleton didn't seem to be in place in terms of the bringing everything into individual stocks, units, and...
Well, if I can just pause you there.
Yeah, sorry.
If you're reading your file and this is one of the first
Yes.
documents you read, when you read this, before going to consider anything else, what did you take from this account here from the auditor in relation to Mr. Castleton?
That the audit team were there to identify and potentially find a solution to the issues that were appertained between those dates and the list of weeks 43 to 48, the losses that were being incurred or the misbalances that were being incurred.
Going over the page, please, page 11 of this document. We see a letter of suspension of the same date as the audit report. Over the page again, please, page 12 of this document. We see a letter to Mr. Castleton from Miss Oglesby, dated 26th of April 2004, informing Mr. Castleton that she is considering the summary termination of his contract on the grounds that the audit on the 23rd of March resulted in a total shortage of £25,758.75. And going on 2 pages, please, page 14 of this document. This is a letter from Mr. Castleton to Mrs. Oglesby and Mrs. Joyce, dated the 28th of April, which followed Ms. Ogilvy's letter of the 26th of April. In it, he says this of the audit in the first substantive paragraph. I would like to point out that the audit took place at this office at my request. I felt I was in a situation that nothing was being done, and I felt I needed more people involved. This was Mr. Castleton flagging that he was the one who had requested the audit which took place, wasn't it?
It was indeed, yes.
So Mr. Castleton was seeking scrutiny of his accounts. He was seeking help to get to the bottom of his balancing problems, wasn't he?
He was. And again, that was unusual that a postmaster would ask for a full audit of their branches. Certainly never in my experience have come across that. Nor would an audit team necessarily act on that. They would normally go through the retail line manager before committing to an audit.
You set out in your statement to the inquiry the steps you took as part of your pre-appeal hearing inquiries. Could we have that statement on screen, please? It's WITN 085601000. And it's page 5 of that statement, please. Paragraph 16. You say here, I contacted the decision manager, who was Kath Oglesby, to go through the documentation I had received. This allowed me to ensure that I had a thorough understanding of the case and the associated paperwork, and to understand the rationale for the decision to terminate Mr. Castleton's contract. Did you speak to Catherine Oglesby before or after you went through the documentation you had been provided with? Can you remember?
I would have spoken to her after, because I've no working relationship with Kath. I know the name, but as an appeals manager, it's independent of the particular area that Kath works in. So it would always have been after, in my recollection, because it's kind of got to be after, because you've got to understand what the case is and then sort of build that rationale as part of your pre-appeal inquiries.
You already had a summary of events from Miss Oglesby in your papers, didn't you? Which we've looked at, that first document.
Yes, I have.
Given you were independently rehearing this case, do you think there was a danger in speaking to the original decision maker in addition to simply reading their summary of events, in that their view of the case might influence your own?
No, I actually don't. I mean, I've always followed that process with all my appeals to understand what the decision, irrespective of the type of appeal, to understand the rationale for the decision taken, which it might seem strange, but it does help you with your pre-appeal inquiries. It can point you in certain directions that may not be immediately obvious when you read the papers. Some appeals do not come as concise as that one. Some are a little harder to deal with, so I always follow that process.
One of the pre-appeal hearing inquiries you made was to contact the transactional account team at Chesterfield, wasn't it?
It was.
To check for error notices, as they were called during the period we're talking about. It's right, isn't it, that error notices were generated when a sub-postmaster made a mistake when inputting transaction details into their computer?
That is correct.
So because there were physical documents evidencing transactions which were sent off in an envelope to the relevant team, such an error could be picked up?
That is correct.
So error notices do not assist us in a situation where the discrepancy is being caused not by the incorrect inputting of the figures, but instead, for example, by a bug, error or defect in the Horizon system?
Not necessarily, because with an error notice, they come from various clients. So if you experience a discrepancy, it could be from Alliance and Leicester Gyro Bank, it could be from National Savings. Some of those error notices take a considerable amount of time to come back through the system. So one of the things that I was looking at when I reviewed all the paperwork and the documentation prior to visiting the branch was really to start to close down points that could explain the discrepancies. So some error notices take 3 months, some can take 6 months or longer. I've known some from National Savings Bank can take considerably longer because we're relying on the customer submitting their documentation at the same time. So it was important to understand what was coming through the system that potentially could have explained some or all of the discrepancies that Mr. Castleton was incurring.
But regardless of when that error notice might come through, primarily what's being picked up on is a difference between that physical documentation and what's been inputted into the system, isn't it?
It can be an error that the branch has keyed. So, for example, with Alliance and Leicester Gyro, we accept cash and cheques. And the documentation is not necessarily that user-friendly as it shows a grand total. So if a branch keys the grand total, they will incur potentially a significant shortfall on the value of the cheques because we just simply process the cheques in a sealed envelope. However, they are included in the grand total. So sometimes those transactions can go through the system and then we have to wait until they correct themselves. So they would show an immediate negative position in the accounts, a loss, and we then wait for those to come back through the system to correct that position.
Could we have on screen, please, page 5 of this document, going further down, paragraph 19. This is still on the pre-appeal hearing inquiries, and you say, I checked with the National Business Support Centre and the Horizon System Helpline to confirm if the checks on the Horizon integrity had been completed and to check the phone calls to ascertain if the branch had ever had to close. The Horizon System Helpline confirmed that the checks previously requested did not raise any issues on the integrity of the system. The National Business Support Centre confirmed that there were no reported calls of the branch closing. You refer here to checks on the Horizon integrity. At the time, did you understand it to be part of the role of the Horizon System Helpline to conduct checks on the integrity of the system?
That is my understanding, yes. Or they may refer it to Fujitsu.
And just decoding that, what that meant was whether the figures produced by the system were accurate. Is that right?
No, what I was referring to here was Kath had made various calls into the HSH, the Horizon System Help Desk, to have those checks. I believe at the time those checks hadn't come through, and it was trying to verify the position that Kath had started off as part of her case.
But just in terms of what the integrity of Horizon actually meant, that was referring, wasn't it, to whether the figures being produced were accurate?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Setting aside Mr. Castleton's case in particular, did you understand at the time that Horizon software problems could, in principle, cause discrepancies in branch accounts?
That's in 2004 and in 2006. I personally had never been made aware of any issues whatsoever in the Horizon system.
The Horizon System Helpline looked at the integrity of Horizon, and presumably you didn't think that was just in this case. What did you think the purpose of those checks were, if it wasn't possible for the system to cause discrepancies in the accounts?
To ascertain if everything that had been processed in the branch was correct, and if there was nothing affecting the accuracy of that information.
Contained within the documentation you were provided with for the appeal was a table setting out the calls made from Marine Drive Post Office to the Horizon System Helpline, and a table setting out the calls made from the branch to the Network Business Support Centre. Could we have on screen, please, POL 000-71234? And starting at page 20, please. So we can see at the top there that these are the HSH, the Horizon System Helpline calls. On my count, there were 20 calls relating to the Marine Drive branch in the relevant period, that is January to April 2004, 9 of which related to balancing or discrepancy issues, and 6 of which were reports of computer problems. Does that sound about right to you, having looked at this document to refresh your memory more recently?
Yes, it does. I think the remainder are MBSC calls.
And going forward, please, to those MBSC calls, page 23. On my count, there are 74 calls recorded here. Of these calls, 11 appear to relate to the issue of balancing or discrepancy issues. A further 11 appear to relate to computer issues, and a further 4 relate to both balancing and computer issues. And that was the breakdown given by Andrew Wise in his statement for the Castleton case. Did you read the information relating to the helpline calls? Did you read through these tables?
Absolutely. Because that started to indicate, when I first read through both of the tables, one of the areas that kind of jumped out at me at the first, before I visited the office, was potentially, was this a training issue? That there are lots of various issues being related. Some are transactional, some are just kind of reaching out and asking for help. And that's what I started to look at when I visited the office, to see what the state of the accounts were, what the how the office was trading. I appreciate there've been 2 interim postmasters in there, but that really was the start point to go to the office and look at the accounting documentation for myself, to try and rebuild the accounts, as I didn't have any other analysis really as part of the case of what was happening.
On any view, this was not someone who was seeking to hide the apparent discrepancies which were occurring, was it?
Absolutely not.
Quite the opposite, wouldn't you agree?
Indeed, yes, absolutely.
That can come down. Thank you. You say at paragraph 11 of your statement to the inquiry, and you have said it again this morning, that you considered this case to be most unusual, as you had never before seen or heard of an instance where a sub-postmaster or poll employee was making a claim that discrepancies were as a result of the Horizon system. Did you ask anyone at the post office whether there were any other cases in which sub-postmasters or post office employees had made such claims?
There's only one point towards the end of the appeal hearing, after we'd done the appeal hearing, that I discussed the case with my colleagues on the points that Mr. Castleton had asked me to look at. And that was a discussion with the case with a very experienced colleague.
But did you ask whether there were any other cases apart from Mr. Castleton's of people experiencing what Mr. Castleton was experiencing?
No, I didn't. It was the first time I'd seen anything like it.
Did the fact that you thought this to be an isolated case influence the way you assessed Mr. Castleton's appeal?
No, it was really to re-look at everything that was happening within the branch that I could possibly analyse, to see if there was no evidence that Mr. Castleton was producing as part of his case to Kath Oglesby. So therefore, it was my thought train was looking at rebuilding those accounts to see if there was something that could explain the shortfalls, and that's the approach I took with this appeal.
Had you been aware of other cases where sub-postmasters or post office employees were making the same claims as Mr. Castleton, that apparent discrepancies were being caused by problems with the system, would that have changed the way you approached this case?
Potentially, yes. But I still thought it was really important to go through all the documentation at the branch to ascertain its arithmetical correctness. I'm not an expert on Horizon. I don't understand how the bugs worked that are identified in Mr. Justice Fraser's summary of the Horizon trials, Bates and others. Yes, I would have looked at it completely differently. Whether I'd have got an answer or not remains to be seen.
As part of your pre-appeal hearing checks, you conducted visits to the Marine Drive Post Office on the 28th of June and the 30th of June 2004, is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And taking this fairly shortly, would it be right to say that you concluded, by reference to undercopies, as you call them, that is, physical documents recording transactions in the branch, that the figures Mr. Castleton had entered into the Horizon system relating to the transactions carried out at the branch were correct?
That is correct, yes.
The appeal hearing took place on the 1st of July 2004, didn't it?
Excuse me. Yes, it did.
And just as a point of clarification, you say in your statement to the inquiry that you believed the person supporting Mr. Castleton at the meeting, Julie Langham, was a representative of the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters. Mr. Castleton was in fact not a member of the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters, and it is Mr. Castleton's recollection that Ms. Langham was in fact a fellow sub-postmaster. Was that just an assumption you were making as to Ms. Langham's association with the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters?
Yes, I was. I was completely unaware that Mr. Castleton wasn't a member of the NFSP, although, however, that is detailed in the additional bundle that I've recently received.
One of the factors you have cited in favour of your decision to uphold the termination of Mr. Castleton's contract, this is paragraph 34A of your statement, we needn't display that now, was that Mr. Castleton did not take the action recommended by Catherine Oglesby to create single stock units to identify if there was embezzlement taking place and to perform frequent balance and cash declarations to identify daily or interdaily balance positions. You asked Mr. Castleton about this at the appeal hearing, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Could we go, please, to the record of the appeal hearing contained within your decision letter to Mr. Castleton? The reference is POL 000-71227. And it is page 4 of that document, please. And starting, please, at the third paragraph down there, JJ, is that you?
It is.
Asked what action he took following the first discrepancy in week 39. LC said he made a call to the helpline to say he was short and began to work through all the figures. LC stated he kept asking for help following subsequent shortages, but his retail line manager said it could be in the system and would probably come back. JJ asked if LC had taken any other action. LC said they had discussed splitting the stock unit or running a manual week. LC said he had been in favour of running a manual week to prove the system was wrong, but this had not actually been done, and then he was suspended. We also have some handwritten notes of this meeting. Could we have on screen those notes, please, which is POL 000-82324. Starting on page 2 of that document, please, as the first page is blank. We see the title and reference to who was at the meeting, so notes of the meeting held on the 1st of July 2004 at Darlington Post Office, and the people present at interview there. And then over to page 4 of this document, please. About halfway down, we see JJ. This is you, and the question. Your RLN suggested splitting the stock unit. Why were you so adverse to this? LC says, no, not until week 9 of the problem. I was not adverse to splitting the stock unit. I was adverse to the fact that the suggestion had been made in week 9 after so many phone calls and repeatedly asking for help. We discussed a manual week also, and we decided that was the best way to prove the fault on the computer. But Chrissy was away over the next 2 balances. And then I was suspended before we had, and it looks like the word chance at the bottom. So Mr. Castleton is effectively saying, isn't he, that the suggestion came too late to be helpful. Do you remember him saying that?
I don't recall those specific words. My understanding from Kath was that the suggestion to go to individual stocks and do the frequent cash declarations is a standard process that we always put in place where we've got multi-user stocks, and when you put them down to individual stocks, you can start to isolate and eliminate any issues you may be having, and particularly doing the cash declarations frequently, you would, if there was a bug there, or if there's anything that was causing anything untoward, you can immediately address it rather than simply waiting until you do the cash accounts at the weekend, at the end of the physical week. Then it becomes a bit of a needle in a haystack. If you're splitting that stock unit up and putting that rigor in place, you can see if there are things happening that potentially Kath could have taken back to the Horizon System Help Desk simply to look at.
But in circumstances where Mr. Castleton was saying the suggestion was too late to be helpful, was that a factor that you should have taken into account in your decision making, that he didn't take it on board?
My understanding is that Kath had asked Mr. Castleton a lot earlier in the case to put that discipline in place.
Both before the appeal hearing and at the appeal hearing, it was clear, wasn't it, what Mr. Castleton was saying, consistently and repeatedly, that the discrepancies being shown by the Horizon system were caused by the system and did not represent real losses.
That is correct.
Could we have on screen, please, Mr. Jones's statement to the inquiry, WITN 085-60100, at page 6, please. And paragraph 21 here, you say, as far as I can recall, Mr. Castleton submitted no actual specific evidence at the appeal hearing. The core of his submission, as I recall, centred on blaming the Horizon system and the data telephone lines for causing the cash discrepancies. Apologies. What evidence could Mr. Castleton have produced at the appeal hearing over and above the evidence you already had as a result of your inquiries?
I kind of return back to the advice, the salient advice that the Kath Oglesby had asked him to put in place. That is the standard approach that we use right the way up to myself leaving the business in 2019, that when you're operating on multi-user tills, then if you put those into individual stock units and do the necessary cash declarations, maybe in the morning and in the afternoon, then if there is anything that is causing a discrepancy in the system, then you will see that. That should be, and give you the opportunity to take that away and look at it. That wasn't available, didn't happen. And so for me, there was nothing else that I could look at that related to the Horizon system being the core of these issues.
But that not being available, what else could Mr. Castleton have produced at the appeal hearing in these circumstances to support what he was saying?
It's a very good question. I'm not sure, because the other cases, and this is with hindsight, that are identified in Mr. Justice Fraser's report, that postmasters were identifying issues and raising those and dealing with those that were accepted by the HSH call centre. That really was the area we were looking at, that particular process hadn't been followed. So we really had nothing else to go on.
You go on at paragraph 21 of your statement directly below to say, I do not recall any other submissions or mitigation made by Mr. Castleton or Julie Langham, other than the requests by Mr. Castleton to recheck the Horizon accounts from the weeks 45 to 50 of the 2003 to 2004 financial year.
That is correct.
That document can come down. Some analysis of weeks 46 to 50 was done after the appeal hearing by a post office area manager called Anita Turner, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
And you communicated the results of that analysis to Mr. Castleton by way of a letter dated the 8th of July 2004. Could we have this on screen, please? It's LCAS 0000113 at page 54 of that document, please. And if we can just zoom out a little so we can see further down and over the page. This is the letter from you, going back please one page, to Mr. Castleton. And you say, Mr. Castleton, I'm writing to advise you of the independent analysis that has been conducted on the Horizon balance printouts that you requested be performed at your appeal hearing on the 1st of July 2004. Just pausing there, the independent analysis you're talking about is the review of the documentation by Post Office Area Manager Anita Turner.
That is correct.
The analysis is as follows. Cash account week 46, week ending the 12th of February 2004, the branch declared a shortage discrepancy of £8,243.10. Cash account week 47, week ending 19th of February 2004, the branch opened a suspense account facility and transferred the shortage discrepancy of £8,243.10 into the discrepancy. The week ending report at the top of the printout indicates the discrepancy from the previous week, and the entry from the addition to Table 2A, the suspense account, which shows a net discrepancy for the week of 0. Cash account week 48, week ending the 26th of February 2004. The branch declares a shortage discrepancy of £3,509.18. The figure of £8,243.10 remains in the suspense account. The table at the top of the printout indicate that the 0 discrepancy from week 47 and the discrepancy from week 48. Cash account week 49, week ending the 4th of March 2004. The branch transfers the shortage discrepancy from the previous week of £3,509.18 to the already open suspense account. The rolling total in the suspense account now stands at £11,752.28. The branch then declares a further shortage of £3,512.26. Cash account week 50, week ending the 11th of March 2004. The branch does not transfer the previous shortage discrepancy from week 49 of £3,512.26 into the suspense account. This shortage discrepancy is rolled over into week 50 without the sub-postmaster making good the discrepancy. It should be noted that rolling forward losses forward is in breach of the sub-postmaster's contract. The final balance declared of £10,653.11 is made up of £3,512.26 from week 49 and a further shortage discrepancy of £7,140.85 from week 50. In your statement to the inquiry, at paragraph 27, we needn't turn it up unless you wish to, Mr. Jones. You say this: the results of the findings were communicated to Mr. Castleton on the 8th of July 2004 to advise him of the findings of the analysis and confirm that the Horizon accounts for the weeks 45 to 50 were deemed to be performing correctly. But it's right, isn't it, that all this analysis did was to confirm the discrepancies being shown by the system?
Mr. Castleton specifically asked at this appeal hearing to check the suspense accounts and to give full and due fairness to the points Mr. Castleton was raising. When I discussed the case with a colleague, that was why we asked a independent manager who had no dealing with the case whatsoever to cast a separate set of eyes over how the suspense account was working. That's what Mr. Castleton had asked for, and those results were the outcome of that second set of eyes looking at the accounts.
What the analysis did not do was to assist in any way on the question of whether the figures being generated by the system were correct, did it?
Mr. Castleton asked us to look at the suspense account to see if it was working correctly. My understanding of that analysis is that the suspense account appeared to be working correctly.
And just to be clear, Mr. Jones, then we shouldn't take from your statement at paragraph 27, the statement to the inquiry, that the accounts were deemed to be performing correctly meant anything more than the analysis we've just seen.
Indeed.
At paragraph 24 of your statement to the inquiry, you say that in 2004 you were unaware of what Fujitsu generated Horizon reports were available.
That is correct.
This was, as you've said a number of times in your statement, an independent rehearing of the case.
Yes.
And we've already established you were not limited to the material which had been before Ms. Oglesby.
That is correct.
Did it occur to you at any stage when you were making your inquiries to ask someone, whether that was someone from within the post office or someone at Fujitsu, whether there was any further evidence which Fujitsu might be able to provide which might assist you in your task?
I was completely unaware of any other reports as within my role or within the role of appeals manager that could have assisted me.
And you say at paragraph 29 of your statement to the inquiry that you had no authority to access Fujitsu. Setting aside the question of whether you personally had authority to access people at Fujitsu, did it occur to you that someone at the post office should ask Fujitsu to investigate further whether any problems with the system might be causing the apparent discrepancies?
I didn't, and with hindsight, potentially that could have been a route that I could have followed.
To the best of your recollection, did the post office see it as any part of its role to raise concerns like Mr. Castleton's with Fujitsu on behalf of its sub-postmasters, or can't you help with that?
I really can't help with that. However, I think Mr. Justice Fraser's report clearly identifies that that really wasn't the case in all circumstances.
You did some analysis of the cash accounts at Marine Drive Post Office for the weeks 46, 47 and 50, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And the results of this feature in your decision letter sent to Mr. Castleton under factors affecting the decision. Could we have that decision letter on screen, please? It is POL 000-71227. And And it's page 7 of that document, please. About a third of the way down the page, we see point 5, factors affecting the decision. And then at the bottom of the page at F, we have this, the daily cash transactional analysis that was conducted identified in cash accounts week 46, 47 and 50 that there was clear evidence of false cash declarations being made as the cash received from a Giro customer was not reflected in the final cash declaration at the branch. Mr. Castleton was unable to offer any explanation for such discrepancies other than it was the system. Could we have on screen, please, Mr. Jones's statement to the inquiry, that is WITN 085-60100. Page 9 of that document, please. Paragraph 34. You list here the factors that you say you took into consideration when upholding the decision to terminate Mr. Castleton's contract. Do take the time to look at this again, so the factors that you list here. And then again over the page, it continues. I'm just scrolling down to the end of those factors. You do not list in your statement to the inquiry, under these factors, the factor that you listed in your decision letter at F, that there was clear evidence in the cash accounts for weeks 46, 47 and 50 of false cash declarations being made, as the cash received from a Giro customer was not reflected in the final cash declaration at the branch. Why is that?
That is a complete oversight by myself.
You did include this factor F, in your decision letter in your statement you made for the litigation against Mr. Castleton, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Could we have that statement on screen, please? It is LCAS 0000113. And it's page 3 of that, please. Starting towards the bottom of the page at paragraph 12, please. And you say here, I also conducted a daily transactional analysis from both daily and weekly balance snapshots in the cash accounts of weeks 46, 47 and 50, in which there were losses of £8,243.10, 0 and £10,653.11 respectively. My analysis showed that there were anomalies between the cash contained in the balance snapshot for the Tuesday of those weeks and the final cash declaration set out in the final balance in the weekly cash account produced on the Wednesday. For example, I evaluated individual transactions between Tuesday the 10th of February 2004 and Wednesday 11th of February 2004 for cash account week 46. My evaluation indicated that the actual transactional receipts exceeded those payments that were declared by the Marine Drive branch by approximately £15,300. It can be demonstrated by reference to a giro receipt that a cash deposit of £16,500 by the car auction, as a customer number, was received on Wednesday the 11th of February 2004, but this is not reflected in the cash account signed by Mr Castleton at the close of business on the Wednesday. A cash declaration of approximately £49,000 should have been made, as opposed to the incorrect cash declaration that was actually made of £33,100. In other words, my assumption at the time was that the Marine Drive branch physically received approximately £15,300 more cash than the amount it actually declared for that week in the cash account. I have no conclusive explanation for this other than the paper records were seriously inaccurate. You go on at paragraph 13. I again visited the Marine Drive branch on 30th of June 2004 to track the Gyro Bank business deposits that the branch received and to establish the flow of cash into the branch. The Marine Drive branch permanently held the account book for the car auction, who regularly deposited significant volumes of cash each Wednesday. The deposit pouch I examined from the company at my visit to the branch contained a large amount of cash and was accompanied by a blank in-payment book and a receipt slip. I was advised by the interim sub-postmaster that this was normal practice for the branch to check the amount in the pouch and then complete the deposit and receipt slip on behalf of the customer. The amount deposited was then processed without any verification with the customer. The pouch would then be returned to the customer with the receipt slip on their next visit to the branch. You then say at 14, I analysed all of that customer's deposits since November 2003 to confirm that the deposits had been brought to account. I double-checked the cash account weeks of 46, 47 and 50, where I had carried out a daily transactional analysis to establish whether the levels of cash that had been declared had actually been received from this customer. My analysis showed that erroneous cash declarations had been made because the cash usage that occurred in the weeks 46, 47 and 50 was not reflected in the final cash declared by the Marine Drive branch upon completion of the weekly balance. In other words, the cash that the gyro receipts and balance snapshots showed that the Marine Drive branch had physically received from this customer was not reflected in the cash that Mr Castleton declared in the cash account for each of the weeks examined. The cash physically deposited at the Marine Drive branch should have been accounted for. So you were telling the court in your witness statement that there were 3 instances where cash which was received by Marine Drive branch was not declared. This, if true, would have been a great cause for concern, would it not?
Potentially, yes. The analysis that was done in terms of looking and tracking the overall business and the mean value was also looking at potential areas where we could further look to explain the discrepancies. So I have no Fujitsu reports or the luxury of Fujitsu reports to do all that analysis. The analysis was done manually from the documentation that I had available to me at the branch.
Shortly before the trial took place in December 2006, the Post Office obtained a draft accountancy report in the Castleton case. This draft was dated the 29th of November 2006. You have seen this document, I think, for the purposes of preparing your statement to the inquiry, is that right?
Yes, that was the first. This is the BDO Stoy Hayward report.
Yes.
Yes, that's the first time I had seen that document.
So just to be clear, were you provided with a copy of that report or told anything about its findings relating to your evidence before you gave evidence in the Castleton trial?
No, I was not. The first time I saw that report was with the Horizon Inquiry documentation that was sent to me. That's my recollection.
Could we have that draft report on screen, please? It is POL 000 69955. We can see, as you have already said, it was prepared by BDO Story Hayward, Chartered Accountants. Could we go please to page 4 of this document? This is the summary of the report. Over the page, please, subparagraph E. There is a suggestion by a Mr. John Jones of the Post Office that Mr. Castleton had omitted receipts from a car auction customer which paid in large amounts in cash to its GiroBank account. My conclusions are that 3 large amounts that Mr. Jones refers to were correctly dealt with in the cash account. This is discussed in section 7. Could we go, please, to section 7? That's page 22 of this document. And this is entitled Errors in Recording Receipts, Incorrect Cash Declarations. At 7.1.1, in his witness statement, Mr. John Jones of the Post Office comments at paragraph 12 about incorrect cash declarations. Mr. Jones refers to receipts into a customer's account reference. There's a reference number. I have examined the available information on this account covering the points that Mr. Jones raises. In his daily analysis cash account for weeks 46, 47 and 50, Mr. Jones suggests that the 3 receipts were excluded from the weekly cash balances declared by Mr. Castleton. I have been given photocopies of giro deposits, office copy slips, which would appear to be printouts from the Horizon computer. Report dated 11th of February 2004, timed at 16:20, shows a receipt of £16,537.25 for account reference. There's a reference number. Report dated 18th of February 2004, timed at 17:04, shows a receipt of £12,000 for account. Again, there's a reference number. Report dated the 10th of March 2004, timed at 16:46, shows a receipt of £12,000 for the same account. From the detailed transaction listings, these amounts can be seen to be entered into Horizon as follows: £16,537.25 at 15:08 on the 11th of February 2004, posted to code 262. £12,000 at 13:26 on the 18th of February 2004, posted to code 262. £12,000 at 11:55 on the 10th of March 2004, posted to code 262. Do you accept now that you were wrong in your conclusion set out in your witness statement for the litigation against Mr. Castleton, that Mr. Castleton had not declared these 3 large sums of cash received by the branch?
Yes, I do, and I can't explain how that's happened.
Could we go, please, to the transcript of your evidence given at the trial on the 12th of December 2006? The reference is LCAS 0000570. Turning, please, to the second page of that document. We can see you being sworn at the top, examination in chief by Mr. Morgan. And then a bit further down at E, please. And the question is, could you turn through that document to page 489? Could you tell the court what you see there, please? That is a statement and my signature dated on 5th of October 2006. Have you had an opportunity to read this witness statement recently? I have indeed. Are there any corrections or changes to it that you would wish to make? No, there are not. And can we turn, please? Well, first of all, when you were being questioned by Mr. Castleton, do you remember him challenging you on your conclusion at paragraph 12 of your statement for the litigation, the conclusion relating to the figure of £15,300?
Very vaguely, I can't specifically recall it, but I do remember Mr. Castleton challenging me on that, yes.
Could we turn, please, to page 47 of this transcript? Starting just below circa 22. So from there, where you state the branch receives £15,300 more in receipts than in payments, is that still the case? So this is a question from Mr. Castleton, and the answer here from you is, from these figures, that would appear not to be the case. Are you happy with those figures? I am indeed. So that is factual then, as far as you are aware, as far as I am aware. Then His Honour Judge Havery asks, between D and E, what is this thing anyway, Mr. Castleton, the document that is being asked about? The defendant: it is something that Mr. Jones prepared for the appeals panel, where he provided me with proof that cash came into the office but was not in actual fact accounted for. But because of the discrepancies in that figures, then the assertion, I believe, is not correct. Do you believe that, Mr. Jones? There would appear to be, just for 46, a figure that I'm not sure where that figure originally derived from. So you are happy that in week 46 your assertion that £15,000 came into the office but in actual fact was not accounted for is incorrect. Answer: the branch receives £15,000 greater than receipts. I would concur that would appear to be incorrect. I understand your evidence that you were not told about the draft report from BDO before you gave evidence at the trial. But at any point before the trial, did you check the figures, as Mr. Castleton had done, to make sure you were right in your conclusions about cash received not being declared?
No, I didn't, because I didn't have access to that documentation.
Another point which Mr. Castleton questioned you on was your suggestion that the branch had been ordering more cash than it needed to have to operate. And it was his position, wasn't it, that you had not taken into account cash which had been returned, which was foreign currency or unusable notes. Do you recall that now?
Very vaguely.
We have Mr. Castleton's skeleton argument for the trial. Could we have that on screen, please? That is POL 001 07458. Turning, please, to page 5 of that document. Actually, if we can go back one page, please, just to put it in context. We see here defendant's skeleton on trial to be heard from Monday the 4th of December 2006. Then going over the page, please, to paragraph 10, which is towards the bottom of that second page. Mr. Castleton says this: Mr. Jones, witness, asserts that only £20,000 was returned over the period of 15th of January to the 17th of March. This is because £35,000 actually returned was made up of foreign currency, Scottish notes, coinage and unusable notes, defaced, ripped. This then proves that the £35,000 returned when taken from the actual ordered, apologies if we can go back for one moment. the actual ordered £316,590 gives £282,000. This when consideration that the branch needed £288,000 to fulfil its payments clearly shows that physically all cash is accounted for. Therefore, I would ask that C is allowed to prove that this physical cash is missing before my witnesses and I are asked to defend these assertions. Did you check the figures on the levels of cash held by the branch before the trial?
Not before the trial, no. Everything that was relating to my analysis was from 2004.
Could we have on screen, please, Mr. Jones's statement to the inquiry, WITN 085 60100? Page 7 of this, please. And it's paragraph 28 towards the bottom of the page. And starting at the penultimate line, given the documentation at my disposal and the inquiries I was able to conduct, I have never been able to determine the cause of the shortfalls experienced by Mr. Castleton. It was not possible to determine from the information at my disposal if the discrepancies were caused by the Horizon system. However, my inquiries verified that all the customer transactions over the periods in question were performed correctly and accurately at the Marine Drive branch. Did it not concern you at the time that you were upholding the termination of the contract of someone in circumstances where the cause of the apparent shortfalls was undetermined?
The decision that as part of my inquiries, all the areas that I was able to look at with the documentation that was available to me at the time, to verify all the customer transactions, essentially I'd reached a point where everything we'd looked at, that there was nowhere else really to go with that, and the decision's based on the balance of probability. So essentially I was looking at everything that I possibly could to ascertain were the accounts operating correctly, and everything that I was able to look at indicated that they were. There have been 2 interim postmasters following Mr. Castleton's suspension who'd ran the branch. Both of those, apart from one error that I believe was appropriate to leaving a customer's transactions on the stack, the branch was operating as one would normally expect a post office to operate. So there was no other areas that I could possibly look at from the information that I had available to me at that time, that you evaluate all those points and reach the decision that I did on the balance of probability that the decision that was taken by Cathal Oglesby was the correct decision at that time. Obviously, knowing what we know now, then potentially that was not the correct decision.
And you're saying here it wasn't possible to determine from the information you had if the discrepancies were caused by the Horizon system. Again, didn't that concern you, that you simply could not say from what you had looked at if his theory was correct or not?
Everything I looked at to verify all the customer transactions were done correctly, looking at all the figures that were going into the accounts, there was nothing that alluded to that the Horizon system was not working correctly.
To draw things together, At the time you took your decision, nobody had been able to identify the cause of the apparent discrepancies. There was no evidence that Mr. Castleton had stolen any money.
Correct.
He was reporting that the apparent discrepancies and repeatedly seeking help to get to the bottom of them. You didn't see any problem with the way customer transactions were being done in the branch. And you couldn't ascertain yourself from the information you had whether Mr. Castleton was right that the discrepancy in the figures did not reflect a true loss.
That is correct, yes.
In these circumstances, what did you understand to be the reason that the Post Office was terminating Mr. Castleton's contract?
That the unexplained losses were genuine losses to the business, and the retail network managers have a role in the business to protect our assets and value, and therefore I think Kath had reached a point where those losses were believed to be real losses, hence why she took that decision, probably based on risk. And that was the understanding of the case, that those unexplained losses were genuine losses, and that's why the decision was taken.
If you believed those to be real losses, what did you think had happened to the money?
I've no genuine idea where the money went. There is certainly no accusation whatsoever that Mr. Castleton did anything untoward with that. I've never been able to find out where those losses, if they were real losses, went to. Hence why I think at the start of the case, the Security and Investigation Team did not want to get involved in that. There was no evidence of any criminal activity taking place in their view. So I really can't explain where the monies went to.
Sir, those are all the questions I have. Subject to any questions you may have, maybe it is nearly time for our morning break to ascertain whether there are any questions from call participants.
Well, let's find that out first. Are there any questions from call participants?
There's a very short question from me.
Right. I think we will take the morning break now, if I, because I would like something checked during the break. When you began questioning Mr. Jones about what I'll call his view in 2004, that there had been, in effect, under declarations of cash received, which appeared to be part of his reasoning for upholding the termination, and then pointed out that that did not appear at paragraph 34 of his witness statement. I think he used words which suggested that they didn't appear in paragraph 34 because that was an oversight on his part. I want that checked, because if he did say that, that would be entirely inconsistent with what followed, namely you demonstrating that by the time he gave evidence at the trial, he was accepting, under cross-examination from Mr. Castleton, that his view on that topic was erroneous. Or at least that's my understanding of the evidence. And I would like that checked, because if he did say that to me, I want to know why he was telling me that he, in effect, it was an oversight that it didn't appear in paragraph 34. Now, I may have misunderstood what he's saying, which is why I want the transcript checked before either I or anybody else pursues that point. So we'll take our break, and would you someone check the transcript for me, please?
Yes, sir, of course. Shall we come back in 20 minutes in that case at 11:45?
Yeah, yes, please, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Hello, sir. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Sir, you asked that the transcript was checked. In answer to my question as to why the factor listed at F in the decision letter was not included in the list of factors in the statement to the inquiry, the answer was that was a complete oversight by myself.
Thank you. All right. Well, before I ask any questions, if I do, let those recognized legal representatives who wish to ask questions ask their questions.
I think it's Ms. Page who has questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jones, I represent a number of sub-postmasters, including Mr. Castleton. I'm going to ask for one document to be put up on the screen, please. It's poll 30083351. Now, this is a email from you to Mr. Stephen Dilley, copying in Mandy Talbot and Kath Oglesby, and we can see that it's at the nearest to the beginning of the involvement of those lawyers in the Pole v Castleton trial, 17th of November of 2005. And you've attached your appeal report, and you've gone through some of the issues that come out from that appeal report. But if we scroll down to the bottom, you summarise. And that final paragraph reads as follows. In summary, the decision to terminate the contract for services of Mr. Castleton was sound, and on the balance of probabilities, the cash was removed by a person or persons working within the branch. Now, you've just told us, in fact, there was no evidence, was there, that cash was removed?
There's no specific evidence that was ever levelled against Mr. Castleton. In terms of the summary of the case, they were believed to be live losses, and therefore there was the belief that that cash was missing. Hence why Mr. Castleton's contract was initially terminated by Kath Oglesby. Therefore, taking that assumption that the cash and the losses were genuine losses, then on the balance of probabilities, where is that cash? That was the rationale for that statement.
Is it right that you took the view that either Mr. Castleton or Miss Train must be guilty of theft?
There was never any allegation or insinuation ever made that Mr. Castleton did anything improper, and I think that's also recorded at the Raw Courts of Justice when I think Mr. Castleton asked me a similar question.
But that's what you believed, isn't it?
Working on the balance of probabilities that if those cash losses were real, and it was believed they were by both the dismissing manager, and there was nothing else that I could uncover to indicate anything else, then there was a belief that that cash had gone.
Do you have anything to say to Mr. Castleton now?
I've always said, and I said to Mr Castleton at the Royal Courts of Justice, there's never been any insinuation that he did anything wrong. There's been no wrongdoing on the part of Mr Castleton, no evidence to suggest that.
So you don't have anything else that you want to say to him now?
I think on the balance of Mr Justice Fraser's reports and the amount of bugs that were uncovered that were in the Horizon system, then I think both myself, and I'm happy to apologise, but I also think Post Office Limited have got a duty of care to apologise, because quite clearly Mr Justice Fraser's identified many bugs that potentially, there's probably only one. I've looked at those, having read Mr Fraser's reports on a number of occasions, because you do some soul searching when you find out the nature that was uncovered in the Horizon trial, and you've got to do some soul searching to understand that was the decision I took correct. And the nearest bug that I could, or that was recorded in Mr Justice Fraser's report was the, I think it was the Falkirk bug, that potentially that may, with hindsight, have affected Marine Drive. So I'm more than happy to apologise that on behalf of the Post Office, but in essence, at that time in 2004, we were completely unaware, and even at 2006 when the case went to the Royal Courts of Justice, of anything that was actually wrong with the Horizon system. The one point I would like to make is that BDO Stoy Haywood were provided with detailed Fujitsu reports. Certainly weren't available to myself. When those accounts were reopened in 2006, what did they actually see? Because the detail of those reports that the author has concluded his report on would suggest that they were not just credence reports. They were at a different level, that potentially, when they were reopened, could Fujitsu have seen a bug or something affecting those accounts that would have explained everything that has since transpired, or I say everything, but has since transpired from the Horizon trials. So at that point in 2006, those accounts were reopened. Mr Castleton's account was reopened. So I think it's a question that needs to be asked to Fujitsu. What did they see? Because they provided really detailed reports to BDO Stoy to do a forensic analysis of those accounts. Does that answer the question?
I have no further questions, thank you.
Could that document remain on screen, please? Sorry. And if you scroll up to the sentence, which is the one that's visible right at the top where we are, it's the sentence which begins under Roman 1. On a number of occasions, it was demonstrated. Could that be highlighted, please? It's about halfway through that paragraph. Now, my understanding, and please feel free to correct me, Mr. Jones, if I'm wrong in this, that when you wrote your statement for the High Court, that sentence, not in precisely that form, of course, but that sentence was included in your witness statement. When I say included, that point rather than the sentence, was included in your witness statement.
That is correct.
And that was because at the time you dismissed dismissed the appeal of Mr. Castleton. You believe that to be true, as I understand it.
I do, and documentation that both BDO Stoy Hayward in their forensic analysis concluded the same. I also understand in the additional bundle of papers that Fujitsu have made a similar, I think it is Julie Walsh from Fujitsu. I'm not sure who she was responding to. She wasn't responding to myself. It was that they were also seeing exactly the same. So I think
Well,
it's not just me saying that I believe that was the case. There are two other independent bit from statements that say exactly the same.
Well, I'm confused now, and you better put me right, because I thought that this sentence, in effect, related to that part of your appeal decision, which you subsequently in the trial accepted wasn't correct on the basis.
This, sir, is different. This is the...
All right, then I've made a mistake in highlighting that sentence. Forget that sentence, and let me start from a different point. In your appeal decision, at paragraph F, you made as one of your reasons for upholding the appeal that which was contained in that paragraph F. That's correct, isn't it?
Which is that? Which is that paragraph, sir?
Right. I'm sorry, I'm not helping you as much as I should. Ms. Price asked you to look at paragraph 34 of your witness statement, and you have that in hard copy in front of you. And she pointed out to you that paragraph F of your appeal decision did not feature as a factor in paragraph 34 of your witness statement.
Yes, sir, that is what I referred to as a complete oversight on my part,
Exactly.
and I apologise for that.
Exactly. Now, you have said that it was an oversight that you did not include that amongst the factors, and I just want to ask you a few questions about that. In the witness statement which you made for the Castleton trial, it did feature as one of the reasons why you upheld the termination, did it not?
It did, and my analysis was based on the branch undercopies that I was able to access at the branch to recreate that. I think the documentation was also referred to under the BDO Stoy Hayward report, was using Fujitsu's either credence or whatever reports to identify those particular transactions. I was using manual undercopies that those undercopies may not have been fully complete, hence why the analysis I drew was what it was. Whereas BDO Stoy Hayward have specific Fujitsu reports that indicated the deposits by time and potentially cash user. I was simply using the hard copies that was in the branch, and therefore it may well be that the individual hard copies for those transactions were not there or were not in the order that all other documentation was at the branch. I don't know. I can't.
No. Because my understanding, Mr. Jones, is that you had not seen the Stoy Hayward report before you gave evidence in the Castleton trial, and indeed hadn't seen it until it was disclosed to you by the inquiry.
That is correct.
So nothing in the Stoy Hayward report could have alerted you to the fact you may have been mistaken when you gave evidence in the Castleton trial.
It potentially could, because the if
Well, you couldn't. It couldn't if you hadn't seen it. You weren't aware of it.
sorry, yes, I wasn't aware of it. If I had seen it, then
No, then never mind about the hypothetical.
Right.
So nothing in the Stoy Hayward report alerted you to the fact that you may have made a mistake for the simple reason that you hadn't seen it.
correct.
Right. But Mr. Castleton asked you questions along the lines of you're mistaken in your belief, did he not?
He did.
And as a result of those questions, you conceded that you were, or at least could have been, mistaken in your belief.
Yes, and it comes back to my analysis to derive the points I made was taken from manual undercopies in the branch. Hence why there may have been, those undercopies may not have been present. That's why the mistake may have occurred.
Yeah, my point is simply this, that when you were challenged about it at the trial, you conceded that Mr. Castleton had a point, or at least may have a point.
I did indeed.
Right. That's why I want to explore with you why you tell me that you'd simply forgotten about this factor when you drafted paragraph 34. Because that event having occurred in the trial, you having realized that you may have made a mistake, makes me wonder how it comes to be that you forgot that at the time of the appeal decision, you included it as a factor.
I just can't explain why it wasn't in the statement I gave. It is a complete oversight on my part. I apologise. I clearly remember, well, I vaguely remembered it. It was 19 years ago.
Well, there is another explanation that you deliberately sought to hide the fact that you had included as a factor in your appeal decision, one which you subsequently recognised may not have been a valid reason for upholding the appeal.
Absolutely not. It was
That's unduly suspicious on my part, is it?
I can only offer an apology, sir, but under no circumstances did I deliberately miss that off my statement to the Horizon inquiry.
Because if you had thought about it, and can I suggest to you that what your statement to the inquiry should have said was, I recall the following factors were taken into consideration as part of my decision. That's how paragraph 34 starts. It would then have included the subparagraph F, but then would have gone on to say, I now recognize, and I recognized in 2006, that my reliance upon paragraph F was misplaced, or words to that effect. That's really what happened, isn't it?
With hindsight, like I say, I apologise, sir, but absolutely that's what it should have said.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. Well, I think that concludes the questions, does it?
Yes, sir. We do have one matter of housekeeping which affects the next witness. And sir, if you're amenable to it, I would suggest an early lunch to deal with that rather than a break and then lunch at the usual time.
All right, that's fine by me. Mr. Jones, thank you for making your witness statement.
Thank you.
And thank you for giving evidence before me. We'll convene again at 1:05.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Thank you.